Stop and think for a second. Just think for a minute, really think. Think about the world and the humans that are in it, because there's just a funny little thing about humanity today. We all seem to think that we are the exception. In some small piece of the place in our minds, we all can't help but assume that we should find ourselves different than anyone else, that the rules don't exactly apply. In an emergency, if someone were bleeding out onto the floor and people were just standing in the windows and the doors, if you were to yell, "Someone call 911," no one would, because everyone would assume that someone else already had. They think they're the exception. Your teacher or your parent says, "Here, take one," as they offer you a bowl of sweets. And there's always that one person that takes 2 or 3 because they think they are the exception. Someone says you can't write an entire essay in one night, but there's always 3 or 4 people that try and do it right then. They think they're the exception. Or when you're in a theater and the screen lights up to tell you to turn off your phone, but 4 or 5 people decide to just leave it alone, they think they are the exception. Sitting in class, your teacher says to be silent, stop talking, but 5 or 6 people don't listen, keep squawking because they think they're always the exception. Or when you tell someone that Jesus died for our sins, that the reason we live like we do is because of him, and they smile and they nod like, "That's great and all," but they think you don't mean me. I'm the exception. They think that doesn't apply, you don't know me, you couldn't. Because with what I've done and who I am, there's just no way that a flawless lamb, that Jesus himself, the great I am, would put himself through death just for me. They're talking about someone else. See, the picture of a perfect Christian in most people's minds is just that. Picture perfect. A picture perfect person, precisely placed, photoshopped and properly cropped so that every flaw is hidden, because when you accept Jesus into your heart, when you are baptized, you are a new person. A new, whole person who has repented of their ways and will never commit another sin again, because that's not what Christians do. That's not how Christians are. We're the example, we're the exception. Christians are constantly given the task to be like Jesus, follow Jesus, preach what Jesus preached. We even had little rubber bracelets that said WWJD. What would Jesus do? Well, Jesus was perfect. So we must be perfect. And don't let anyone know that you're not, because that's not what Christians do. That's not who Christians are. We've created this illusion that as soon as we step into the role of being a Christian, that we are meant to be perfect. So we have come to the conclusion that God will accept nothing less. That's almost the exact opposite of what we're trying to say. That's not what Jesus was sent to convey. God sent Jesus so there could be a way for us to come to him, to be in relationship with him, so he could forgive us of our sins, not once, not twice, but as many times as we ask for it, as many times as we need it. I am not perfect, and I won't believe it if you try and tell me that you are. No one in this world is completely and totally sin-free, regardless of what they say, regardless of how they lead you on. The road to heaven is bumpy and narrow and steep, and sometimes you will try but fall into a crumpled heap. The goal is to keep picking yourself up, to keep going after God, to keep trudging up that hill with all the strength that you have, because when you fall, or you skin your knee and you tumble, or you flee all the way down to the bottom, when you're covered in bruises and scrapes and thorns, God isn't at the top scolding you. He isn't looking down from his heavenly throne with scorn. He's next to you. He's beside you. He is holding your hand, and he's guiding you through all the twists and turns he'll lead, because all he ever wanted was to see you succeed. But sometimes you will fall, and you'll want to give in, not get up at all, and just stay there. The enemy will try to convince you that you can't get up. You can't reach where you're supposed to. You're just not good enough. You can't get through it. That God didn't send Jesus down just for you. He sent him to save someone more adequate, qualified, acceptable, perfect through and through. I'm here to tell you that the devil is wrong. It was you Jesus died for. It was you all along. It was you Jesus gave his life to save. And there isn't a single second where he regrets that day. Because you are loved. And you are worth it. You, as you are now. Broken and battered and full of sin, you are not beyond repair. You are not the exception. There was only ever one exception. Jesus Christ, regardless of perception.